The Akedah, the Torah portion that we'll be chanting in just a moment, is a complex portion. In it is Abraham's willingness to be of faith and say to God, Hineni, here I am. But what God asks of him is something quite difficult. I mean, impossible, really. God calls to Abraham, take your beloved son and offer him to the Lord. And Abraham does. And Abraham is so intent on fulfilling the mitzvah, on fulfilling God's command, that he doesn't hear, he doesn't see God call Avraham, look, I have a ram in Isaac's stead. Abraham is so intent. It's Isaac who says to Abraham, look, see. Some people say that Abraham passed God's test, that he said Hineni and was willing to do anything. Some people say Abraham failed God's test. The rabbis teach us that it was Isaac who stayed on the mountain after the traumatic event. It is there when he meditated and wrote the afternoon daily worship service. The Torah portion is on page 240. Happy to invite Ben Hurwitz, Alan Noodleman, and Beth Noodleman to the Torah.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam vaed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai noten haTorah. Vayehi achar hadvarim ha'ela, v'ha Elohim nisa et Avraham, vayomer elav Avraham, vayomer hineni, vayomer kachna et bincha et yechidacha, asher ahavta et Yitzchak, v'lech lecha el eretz hamoria, v'ha'aleu sham leolah. Al echad harim asher omar elecha, vayiskem Avraham baboker, vayachavosh et chamoro, vayikach et shnei na'arav ito v'et Yitzchak beno, v'yivaka atzei olah, vayakam vayelech el hamakom asher amar lo ha'Elohim, bayom hashlishi. Vayisa Avraham et einav, vayar et hamakom merachok, vayomer Avraham el na'arav, shavu lachem po im hachamor, v'ani v'hana'ar nelcha ad ko, v'nishtacha v'nashuva aleichem, vayikach Avraham et atzei ha'olah, vayasem al Yitzchak beno, vayikach biado et ha'esh v'rama'achelet, vayechu shneihem yachdav. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Havarach Le'olam Vahed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Vayomer Yitzchak El Avraham Aviv. Vayomer Aviv. Vayomer Hineni Vani. Vayomer Hine Ha'esh V'Ha'etzim. Va'aye Haseh Le'olam. Vayomer Avraham Elohim Yerelo Haseh Le'olam Ani Vaylechu Shnehem Yachdav. Vayavahu El Hamakom Asher Hamaloho Halelohim. Vayeven Sham Avraham Et HaMizbeach Vaya'aroch Et Ha'etzim Vayakod Et Yitzchak Banoho Vayasam Oto Al HaMizbeach Mimal Le'etzim. Vayishlach Avraham et Yado, Vayakoch et Hama'achelet, Lishchot et Beno. Vayikra Elov, Malach Adonai min Hashemayim, Vayomer Avraham, Vayomer Hineni, Vayomer Al tishlach yedecha al hana'ar v'al ta'aslo me'umar ki ata yadati ki arei Elohim atah v'lo chasachta et bincha et yechidecha mimeni. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Havorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen. Vayisa Avraham et Einav. Vayar v'hine ayil achar ne'echaz basvach bekarnav. Vayelech Avraham vayikach et ha'ayil vaya'alehu le'olah tachat beno. Vayikra Avraham shem hamakom hahu Adonai yir'eh. Asher ye'amer hayom b'char Adonai yera'eh. Vayikra malach Adonai el Avraham shenit min hashamayim. Vayomer binishbati nu'um Adonai ki ya'an asher asita et hadavar hazeh v'lo hasachta et binacha et yehidecha ki varech avarechecha v'harba arbet zaracha kechokvei hashamayim v'chacho asher al safat hayam vayirach zaracha et sha'ar oivav v'hid barachu v'zaracha kol goyei ha'aretz ekev asher shamata bikoli. Vayashov Avraham el ne'arav, vayakumu, vayalachu yachdav el be'er shava, vayeshev Avraham bi'be'er shava. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar b'nevi'im tovim v'ratza v'divrehem v'ne'emarim be'emet Baruch atah Adonai Habocher b'Torah v'Moshe avto v'Yisrael amo v'nvi'ei ha'emet v'hatzedek.
And on the day when Elkanah would make offerings, he would give portions to his wife Peninnah and to each of her sons and daughters. And to Hannah he would give a special portion because he loved Hannah, and the Eternal had closed her womb. And her rival wife would taunt her cruelly to make her tremble with grief, for the Eternal had closed her womb. And so it was year after year when she would go up to the house of the Eternal. She taunted her, and she would cry and not eat. And Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you cry? Why do you not eat? Why are you disheartened? Am I not worth more to you than 10 sons? And Hannah arose after the eating and drinking at Shiloh, while Eli the priest sat upon the throne near the doorpost of the temple of the Eternal. And she, bitter to the core, prayed to the Eternal, weeping and crying, and she vowed, and she said, Eternal of heaven's hosts, if you will truly see your servant's affliction, and remember me, and not forget your servant, and give your servant a son, I will give him to the Eternal all the days of his life, and no razor shall be touching his head. And as her prayer before the Eternal intensified, Eli watched her mouth. And Hannah, she was speaking only in her heart. Though her lips were moving, her voice could not be heard. So Eli he thought she was drunk. And Eli said to her, how long will you persist in your drunkenness? Put away your wine, get rid of it. And Hannah answered and said, no, my Lord, a woman of sorrow am I. I drank neither wine nor spirits, but poured out my soul before the Eternal. Do not take your servant for a worthless woman. All this time I have spoken from the depth of my anger, from the greatness of my grievance. Then Eli answered and said, "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you the request you have made." And as she said, "May your servant find grace in your sight." And the woman went on her way, and she ate, and her face was no longer as it had been. And they awoke early in the morning and worshipped before the Eternal, and they went home, returning to Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah, his wife, and the Eternal remembered her. And so it was that at the turn of the year, Hannah conceived, and then gave birth to a son. And she called him Samuel, because I requested from the Eternal. The blessings after the Haftarah reading are found on page 258.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, sul kol olamim, tzaddik bechol hadarot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'osei, ha'medaber mekayim, shekot devarak, emet v'tzedek. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריך, ודבריך מדבריך, ההול ישוב ריקם, כי המלך נאמן ורחמן אתה.
Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el ha'ne'eman b'chol devarav.